When I started wing foiling, there were a ton of things that I wish I knew, but there are 5 things that I think were the most important elements that every beginner wing foiler needs to know. So in this video, I'm gonna share 5 things that you need to know before you go wing foiling. Check it out. 3, 2, 1. Hey guys, Blaze here. Thanks for tuning into my channel. Now, when I was starting out windsurfing, there were a ton of questions I had about getting out there, conditions, board, equipment, gear, but there were also a lot of things that I didn't know that I should have known that I definitely learned the hard way. So I want to share a couple of these key things with you guys. And if you have any other questions, please feel free to comment below and I'll try to help you guys out. But the first thing right off the bat is wind conditions. When I was starting out, I was wondering, what gear do I need? What conditions are there? How strong does the wind need to be? What's too strong? So what wind conditions should you be going out in? Well, basically your gear is really gonna dictate what optimal conditions you're gonna go out in. So if the wind is blowing really strong, it's nothing to be afraid of. You're just gonna need a smaller hand wing to compensate for a lot of wind energy that's going to be pulling you. But the beautiful thing about wing foiling is, unlike windsurfing or kite surfing, it's a lot less scary and a lot lower consequence to go out there in heavier conditions because it's much easier to just paddle ashore and there's a lot less lines and things attached to your body. So if the wind is blowing really strong would be 25 knots or higher. Don't be afraid to go out there. Just make sure you have an appropriate size wing for those conditions. Typically, your magic wind window is gonna be between 15 knots and 25 knots. Anywhere in that window, you're gonna be like, yes, optimal conditions, get me out in the water. If you're a professional wing foiler, the lightest you're probably gonna get out there is around 10 knots. So if you're just starting out and it's 10 knots, I wouldn't even bother going because you just don't have the skills to get up on your foil and get going yet. So once it hits that 15 knot mark, that means it's go time, get out there, but make sure you obviously have the right gear for those conditions. The second tip I wanted to share is how to carry your setup. Now, this is a very basic thing, but it's amazing how many people actually get out there and they don't know how to carry this thing. You also don't wanna puncture your sail wing with your foil because foils are super sharp. And I can guarantee you, if you're starting out, you're gonna have at least a few walk of shames where you get blown downwind and need to walk all the way upwind. It happened to me, it happens to everyone. So you wanna be able to carry your full setup as efficiently as possible. I went out in a kind of a high fluctuating tile zone and the tide was way out. So I had super long way to get out to the water. And I was literally so excited to get out my first time. I just grabbed my board, didn't even think that there was a efficient way to carry everything. And honestly, I got 10 meters and I was gassed. My arms were gassed. I'm out of breath. I'm like sweating in my wetsuit. So I definitely learned the hard way on how big a difference it makes to carry your setup efficiently. So when you're getting out to the water, basically the easiest way to carry your foil and your board is slung over your shoulder. And with your sail wing, you're basically gonna wanna hold it in your downwind hand. The biggest thing you wanna avoid with your sail wing is not putting it through your foil because the foil is super sharp. So if you're ever carrying your board on the downwind side of your wing, it's super dangerous. So always keep that that wing on the downwind side of your foil / board. So throw that board over your shoulder using the mast kind of as a resting point on your shoulder and carrying the wing in your downwind hand on the leading edge. Once you get close to the water, then you can switch to hold the board by its handle. A lot of people just grab that handle right off the bat, but if you got a long distance to go, then your arm's gonna get super tired. So use that handle once you're close to the water to walk a few steps into the water. And if there's not too much surf, then one of the great tricks that I love to do is just flip my board upside down so the foil's pointing straight in the air, and then I can just hold my board that way as I get deep enough for my foil so it doesn't hit the ground. So basically you're walking anywhere between waist and chest depth in the water, depending on how tall you are and how big a mast you have, just to give some safe clearance for your foil. And once you're there, you can flip your board right side up. Your foil should have plenty of clearance to the ground, and then you can start getting up and getting going on your foil. So the third tip, and arguably one of the most important things that a lot of beginners have trouble with, is figuring out what size board to buy. Basically, the bigger your board, the easier it's going to be for you to ride. But when you get a little bit more advanced, it's going to be a little slower and sluggish, kind of like driving a tractor versus a go-kart. You don't want to make the mistake where you think, I'm going to struggle through the learning curve and it's going to be a lot more difficult because I'm going to get a smaller board. that I can grow into. A lot of people make that mistake, and I saw people making that mistake all around me when I was starting out, and I'm on the board, learning, getting going, getting up on foil almost on the first day, and people around me couldn't even get off their stomachs because they were riding boards that were just too small. So don't make that mistake. Don't think that you're better than everyone else when you're starting out. Everyone's got to learn somewhere. And honestly, you're going to have a ton of fun on a big board for 6 months to a year at least. So don't feel like you need a smaller board because you're going to progress quickly. Get a bigger board if you haven't wingfoiled before. If you're new to the sport, you're going to have a ton of fun on it. I can guarantee you, you'll never be upset for getting a board that's too big. You will be upset with getting a board that's too small. Common rule of thumb is take your weight in kilograms and add 40 to that, and that's going to give you the size of board in liters that you should be getting. So if I'm 70 kilograms, I'm going to add 40 to that, and I'm going to want around 110 liter board. I personally got 125 liter board, and I love it. It got me going way quicker than a lot of people who are struggling on lower volume boards. Can't emphasize it enough. When you're starting out, get a big board. The next tip that I wanted to share is all about when you fall off your board in the water. Now, if the wind is blowing, which it probably is if you're out there, you're gonna get blown downwind when you're in the water. And when you're trying to get up on your board or on the sail, you're slowly gonna drift downwind. So whenever you're going, you wanna make sure that you're going out there in wind that's typically cross shore, maybe even a little onshore. So then when you fall, you're gonna get blown back to the beach or down the beach versus out to sea. So that's a key condition you want to look at is the wind direction. But also you want to make sure you're in a safe place where if you get blown down the beach, there's actually a place where you're going to be able to swim out of the water and then walk your board back up safely. Another thing that I wanted to add to this is that the swimming position for when you're needing to swim to shore or get yourself out of a tough position. One of the great things to do is actually just put your wing, hook your leading edge under your feet behind you, go on your stomach on your board, and you should be able to paddle like a surfer on your stomach, and that gets you, should be able to allow you to even paddle upwind or just paddle out of danger if you're getting blown too far down the beach or if you need to get to shore. And tip number 5 is really foil safety, because riding these foils actually can be super dangerous. When you're riding your board has a very tippy nature. When you're starting out, you're gonna learn this the hard way. You're gonna fall, and you wanna make sure you're not falling on your foil. And the easiest thing to remember is just to go with your momentum. If you're falling forward, don't try and save yourself because that's when you get hurt. Just jump away from your board, commit to the fall, and really go with your momentum. The other thing that I can suggest is wearing booties can really help you, because one thing I also learned the hard way is just swimming around your board. There's this massive foil underwater that you're not accustomed to, and a lot of people will clip their feet and get cuts on their feet, which can be pretty painful. So wearing booties just can protect you, give that a little cushion if you do nick yourself. But in general, just when you're swimming around your board, make sure to keep your feet away from that foil and be aware of where it is at all times. If you guys are looking for more information on what wing, foil, and board to buy, make sure to check out my other video where I go over all of this in a lot of detail. I'm gonna link that in the video description below. Remember, when you're starting out, it's all about time on the water. So get out there, have some fun, get on the board. You're gonna fall, you're gonna struggle, but it's just a learning curve. And I guarantee you, the more time you spend, the more time you're gonna be getting up on foil, having a blast, and absolutely loving the sport. I know I'm addicted, and I just wanna do it more and more and more. I hope this video helped you guys. If you liked this video, please smash that like button. Consider subscribing, and make sure to check out all my other videos on wing foiling that are gonna be posted on this channel. Thanks again for watching, guys, and stay tuned for the next one. Peace.